Welcome to another evening of conscious communication. Thank you, Kitty. Awadu, a brother that I learned from a long time ago in broadcasting. Thank you guys for joining us again for another round of communication, something to enlighten the mind of the so called people that live in America who call themselves African American. What we try to do here at African Americans Ain't African is give information that'll be vital to the community, something that they can use, something that's not full of entertainment and bullshit. So we try to give, pieces of history, things that happened in our history, common sense, common sense ideas, because these are things that are not passed down in the community. We're taught a lot of beliefs, and you see where that has gotten us. So what we try to do here at African Americans Ain't African is just give information that the people can use to help try to prolong and make their lives here on this plane that we living on called Earth a little bit better. As we know, living in the United States today can be harsh for the indigenous people, the Americans. And the Americans are the soul people of this part of the earth. Remember, America stretches from the North Pole to the South Pole. Think about that for a minute. That's contact right there. That's why everybody wants to come to America. That's why they call you the soul people, because you are the people who are on this northern part of America. South America is part of America. Central America is part of America. Mexico is part of America. Canada is part of America. Alaska is part of America. The Caribbean is part of America. Nova Scotia is part of America. Iceland and Greenland, those are part of America. We just don't, as a people, ever look at the map. They got us broken down to where we looking at maps in colors, and we'll talk about that later, how we look at everything in colors and don't look at the reality of what they really are. Canada and North America is the same landmass. Just because somebody comes in with a pencil and marks a line through it and say this is over there and this is over here, don't mean you have to believe it. But in the African American community, that's all we do. We believe. We don't make the instruction that our children will be getting. We don't ensure that our children will have the best education. We're fine to let it go like this. We happy. Our children are being dumbed down to the tune of morons. And we cool with it, long as we can get a check. That is an African American. Now, many won't like it, but we're way past that. We're way past that. You ever notice there's a thread going around where this brother was filming this Italian lady calling him nigger, and it got a rouse out of so many. This is the kind of news that we're fed, because they're trying to get us emotionally charged so we can do something, so they can have a reason to come in and kill a lot of us violently. They do this all the time. They do it all the time. The last time was in the 60s during the Black Power movement, and how that was snuffed out. You went from black to African American in no time. We'll talk about that a little later too. But suffice it to say that the African American is at wit's end. Now, I know a lot of us try to put on a lot of bracelets and trinkets and dress ourselves up and polish up our smiles and get our hair done and our nails done to try to make it seem like we got it going on. Those the people you leave in your tracks. Leave them in their tracks. Because they know. The information, we are in the information age. You have dogs going to the bathroom, peeing in the toilet like a man. This is what you have now. You have this. You have animals that can play instruments. Yet the African American still doesn't know who he is, walking around dazed and confused. A good thing did happen today, though, which is letting me know that things are on the upswing. I went to a jazz concert today, just walked through it, and one thing that I noticed is a lot of people wearing their hair natural again. So again, the information's out there. The information who you are is out there. It's common knowledge. The reason it is not common knowledge to the African American because the African American spends his time in belief. The African American spend time listening to what his master tell him. That in the African American's life, that's the only thing that's important. If I'm lying, if you think I'm wrong, if anything I say you feel that it's not right, or maybe I may be off a minute, give us a call at area code 256-849-2227 and let's discuss it. But don't come with no bullshit, because that's all we are. We're full of shit in damn near everything we do, and we're going to get to that as we get into the program tonight. So I'm not here to offend. I love my people. I love the things that we do. I met a sister today that was 60 years old. I had to ask her to show some ID because I 35. She had a couple of silver hairs up there in the front of her head, just a couple. And I'm like, you got to be kidding. So we are the sole people of America. Everybody knows it but us. You call yourself an African to remove yourself from the land so other people can just walk in and take it. You don't even claim it. Your people got beaten, stomped into the ground here, and you just gonna walk away from it? For real, cuz? You gonna do that? And so you can see now that the African American gets no love. That's why he gets no love, because he dogs himself out. Look how he treats each other. Well, how you think he gonna treat his ancestors? There's no continuity. There's no cohesion for us as a group, which making us, we getting broke down. And those of you who can't see it, going back to sleep. Earlier in the week, I got a phone call from a young man, and this is interesting because, with the website and the radio broadcast going out, I try to name things and label things that'll catch the eyes and the ears of the people who are at least thinking. A lot of things I say, a lot of people who don't really think, it offends them because they haven't thought outside the paradigm that has been set for them. So if I tell you to go over in that corner and you stay in that corner, you're not going to go to the rest of the house because I've told you to sit. And being that's what you've been trained to do, that's all you ever do. And that's basically how the African American thinks and behaves. Doesn't think, no creativity. There's no creativity in the community. There's no, in the schools, there's no creativity coming out. Everybody's job is to make the dollar. That's all. So all you have is dollar-driven ideas for somebody else, to make the money for somebody else. I heard they have a new Jordan tennis shoe out that's $300. Tell me that's a joke. Somebody tell me that's a joke. We can't make a shoe factory and make our own shoes here, especially since you claim you're the one who invented the shoe lasting machine. How is that possible? Tonight we're going to get into that. A couple of weeks ago, I guess it was a couple of months ago now, that Donald Sterling, the owner of the Clippers, just did a straight pimp move. A straight pimp move. I mean, pimp. That's why Amos Wilson calls the black man the white man's bottom bitch. Donald Sterling just made, sold the Clippers for $2 billion. Now, anybody knows about the Clippers, Clippers just recently got good, and even that's not good enough. Donald Sterling just did the typical what all people do to Negroes. They hate you. These people have no love for you, but they can control your emotions so much that it'll make a huge windfall for them. Just like the Donald Sterling deal just went down. Now, Donald Sterling just sold the Los Angeles Clippers for $2 billion. It's never been done in sports history. $2 billion. And those of you who follow sports will know that the Clippers, up until 4 or 5 years ago, was the laughing stock of the league. They never could win because Donald Sterling was how he was then, like he was now. And these are the things we got to remember. Look at the tactics that these people use on you. Look how they do it. And they're successful all the time, because one thing that they have that we don't have, they have our loyal support. We will slap down another brother like me who's just trying to give information and say, don't say that, let boss do what he want to do. That's the African American. That's the African American. If I'm lying, call me, let's talk about it. I got a phone call from a young man this week, and he was asking me information on how he can inform his nieces, nephew, and cousins, because I think this kid was like 20 years old, 19, 20. I think it was 19. And he's trying to tell his cousins and his nieces and all his friends. He said, I can see this, I can see what's happening. He said, I see it. He's 19. The conversation I had with this young man is a conversation that I don't have with most brothers over 40, which is a shame. You talk to brothers 40, I'm not saying all of them. I'm not saying, but not enough of them. When brothers talk, it's about nonsense. It's nonsense. We are not talking about producing as a group of people. We see the Chinese coming over here with these free trade zones. We see it coming. How come the talented 10th, as you like to call them, those of y'all that got y'all education, why haven't those people got together and said, you know what, this is what's happening on the world scene. This is how we're going to have to prepare our people. What's happening? What's happening? Why aren't we getting any information? Why aren't we building solar panels? I mean, you the black man. How come we're not building solar panels so we can get off this grid? How come we're not coming up with new medical advances so we can stave off this disease that we have that is getting us out of here? We falling like flies. Your life expectancy not long ago was about 150, 175 years old. 60, you were still a child. Because your concept of time wasn't named after no Roman gods. And that's how the so-called African American is trained. Other people train him to do what they want them to do for their benefit. The African American doesn't have the wherewithal to say, hey, this is what's going out, this is what's in front of us, and we need to do this. We need to do things that are going to ensure our future, our presence in the future later. Maybe we don't want to be here. Maybe that's it. But the constant cooning that goes on in the community is crazy. And I'm not talking about all the crazy stuff that you see the people doing on the net and the stuff that we see doing in the street. Those are basically the victims. Those are the ones who know better but don't do better. They fall on those are their people. You know, those are their people. We let we let our men, check this out, we let our men create a nation full of zombies so they can buy other people's goods, and we cool with it. We happy with it. We throw our nose in the air and breathe in all the smog. That's how proud we are. That, my friends, is the so-called African American. Cats around here smoking the pipe so much that their lips are burnt. They got blisters on their lips because they so addicted to this. Then this is what we do to each other. You have no idea what you have coming. So this young man was wondering, how come nobody can see this? He's 19. He's 19. And I asked him, I said, how did you put this together? I'm like, what? He said, man, he said, we so disconnected. He's like, he lives in a place, he said, man, it's nothing but African women on the street, on the main street where he lived, braiding hair. And he said he knew something was wrong because he see the art that's in him. He go over people's house and he see art of the mother might be braiding the girl's hair, or, you know, they got some beauty shop kind of art. You know, some of the kind of art, the Ernie Barnes art that goes on in the community. You got this art going on. And he's like, well, how did these African women get over here and start braiding our hair, and we don't braid our hair no more? We wearing these weaves and stuff. That's how he got woke up. He started asking questions. And what this young man, his conversation was interesting for a 19-year-old. For a 19-year-old kid, I was highly impressed. The question that was eating at him was, why does the African American willingly allow themselves to be dogged out on such a high level? I thought it was I like questions like that. I like when the young people ask questions because they're thinking. And even he said he used to ask his parents question, and he wouldn't get an answer. He would get the answer that I got several times, more than several times. You ask a question, you don't get no answer. The answer you get is because I said so. Why do you think a lot of our parents and grandparents said that? Why do you think a lot of our parents and grandparents, when their children came to ask them something about what was going on in the world and their environment, why do you think our parents and grandparents told us, because I said so? When you come up with the answer, call us and share it with us at area code 256-849-2227. African Americans Ain't African Radio. We can be reached at AfricanAmericanAintAfrican.org. You can go on Facebook. We're in the chat room, African Americans Ain't African. Try to bring some information that's going to be helpful to the people. Try to bring some information that's going to make people look at themselves in a different way. You are a part of this earth. You are a part of this earth. You are a part of this planet, like a tree. Like a tree. Like a deer. Like an eagle. Like an owl. You are a part of this environment. You're an integral part of this environment, because the so-called African American male's role, the so-called African American's job, the African American man, woman, boy, girl, their job is to keep this part of earth in harmony with the rest of the people on the planet. What we're supposed to be doing here, we're supposed to be helping this earth maintain its balance in the solar system. Are we doing that? I mean, seriously, as a group. Be honest. Be honest. Are we doing that? Or are we just simply cooning? We cooning, y'all. I implored the young man to think a little bit deeper on what he's saying. You know, take it a little bit further, you know, because, you know, a lot of times we like to grab for the surface. Once we grab for the surface, it might not be sparkly enough because we've seen it all before. It's kind of like you hear a lot of preachers preaching. They said it all before. It's boring. It's time for something new. But we don't do that. We don't dig deep. We just stay right there at the surface. So I told him to dig a little bit deeper into what he's asking. That's when he'll find the nuggets. That's when he'll find the answers. Because not only do African Americans get slapped in the mouth on a daily basis, they get slapped in the mouth on a daily basis. And after they get slapped in the mouth, they flash a smile and show off. Especially if they got bags or a cup in their hand. And as the blood is pouring from their mouth, they defend their right to get slapped in the mouth. And will defend the person who just slapped the shit out of them. The young man said he never heard it like that before. So I decided to give him a little history lesson on how we got into this condition and how we gonna get out of it. And that's what we're gonna talk about tonight. Okay? So if it's all right with you, this is what we're gonna talk about. You know, I'm here in the woods, big time, and a bird flew in today. I look at that as a sign, you know. The bird flew in and he died. Because he got wrapped up in the curtains, he was very frightened. All the doors and windows were open. And he got into the curtain and wouldn't come out. I'm doing some remodeling work in my house, and I have some plywood, and he got behind there and he couldn't get out. There used to be a time when a bird would fly around you or be around you, and they would, you know, they were kind of like pets. You could send letters. You could send food with birds. These are the things that when people are in their environment, have a relationship in their environment, these are the things that they can do. You went from that to couldn't wait to get a dog. This is where we are now. Where they used to sick dogs on you, now Negroes got them sleeping with them, licking them in the mouth. You just doing your thing, huh? Because you disconnected yourself from your mama. And we're going to talk about several ways how we've done that. So I want to share with you tonight what I shared with this young man. Kevin is his name. Hello, Kevin. I hope you're listening. And thanks for calling, brother. And keep asking questions. Keep asking questions. No matter how stupid they sound, ask them. And try to ask the elder people if you can. I implore all the young people to talk to the elder people. Ask them serious questions. A lot of times you won't get answers. But try to find a way to get the answers out of them, because if we don't have more information from our elders than what we have now, when this current generation die out, the civil rights group, you've seen where we are from that. And we can't afford to turn that over to our succeeding generations, because if we do, we're out of here in 3 generations, if that. We see how we being mowed down now. It's important now for the, or they trying to make it seem like it's important for the black man to be a homosexual. Homo meaning one. Once they see, a lot of people think that they try to make the African American community a homophobic community. It's not that. We're the soul people. We're the ones that produce. We're about life. That's all life is about, production. But when you take your life and produce for other people, that makes you a slave. And that's where the African American is today. We are about production of life. So we can help Earth maintain its balance in the universe. That's not what we're here for. Period. That's our job. Not as an individual, but as a group. African Americans think as individuals, that's how we're supposed to function. Everybody else around them function as a group. The Mexicans in Los Angeles have functioned so well as a group, they have removed the Negro out of key places in Los Angeles because they work as a group. Asians, they don't work individually. They work as a group. White people, they don't work as an individual, one man. They work as a group. For some reason, the African American thinks that they can do things individually, and they've gotten so bad that the people that are out there trying to make things happen for them, they don't even support them. They support the groups. This is the African American today. So, I gave the young man a history lesson because he was 19. And I just went back 50 years. I told him to call me back and we'll go back another 50 years. Because you guess how you got to get the information out. Because we really don't know a lot. We believe a lot of things. But we just don't have, we can't connect the dots. We can't connect the dots because we're not trying. We don't really care. As long as we can eat and watch TV, that's basically what the African American's life has consist of. I asked a sister one time, what could she do with the man hours that brothers use watching baseball games, football games, and basketball games? She damn near fainted. She was like, are you serious? What could you do with the man hours that we waste in schools? Sending our children from Miami to Seattle, Maine to San Diego, all the African Americans in between them places. What could we do with those man hours that we waste on a daily basis? What could we do with those man hours that we waste at church? Let's not talk about the money, because as everybody know, the US dollars is basically done. I would just implore people to go back and look at the stock market crash. Take you an hour to study that, and you'll know where we were, where we are now in history was where we were in 1929. Okay, history does repeat itself. There is nothing new under the sun. So I gave the young man a little history lesson, and I just led him along. I just gave him like 5, 6 little different paths that he could follow and pay attention to, and he'll see how we got into this current situation. The first thing that we looked at was TV. When TV was introduced into the the so-called, at that time, Negro community. Because remember, back when TV was invented, you weren't called African American, you were called Negroes, coloreds. Okay? We're having a storm out here in Birmingham, so it's wind is blowing, it's hot, plus it's trying to rain, so this is normally tornado weather, so send out some good vibes. Hope we don't get hit by no tornado. TV, the advent of TV in the Negro community. That started in about the mid 50s when African Americans start to get TVs. Then the Brown versus the Board of Education. Brown versus the Board of Education was a landmark case that desegregated schools. We no longer taught ourselves. We thought it would be cool to integrate and start going to school with them to learn what they learned. That was in the 1950s. Up until now, we at 2015 now. So what's that? 60 years? What? 60 years? We have 60 years of that. We have 3 generations of that. And we're going to tie all this stuff together so you can see what happened. After the Brown versus the Board of Education, you have the Civil Rights sham. So the Brown versus the Board of Education was to mold the minds to get them ready for the Civil Rights sham. And the Civil Rights movement was all about economics. And we ought to be ashamed of ourselves because we fell for that. We ought to feel like fools. After the Civil Rights sham, we went to the black. We went from black because remember, the Civil Rights sham, we was black. We went from Negro to black. It was Negro black, but black didn't take too well. We'll talk about that later as we get into that. But black didn't go too well. Black was a derogatory term for a lot of people, and we'll talk about why. So we went from black to African American, and what that and how that changed us, how that put us on a different vibe. It put us on a different vibe, like the brothers calling the sisters bitches and hoes. So you call a segment of people that, remember, word is power. Word is magical. If I tell you I love you, it makes you feel a certain way. If I tell you what you mean to me, if I tell you you inspire me, it makes you feel a certain way. If I tell you it makes you feel a certain way. The tongue has power. The tongue has power. And when we start calling ourselves and speaking to each other in terms that don't mean nothing, that's what we become. The bitch and hoe example is the best example I can give. A sister asked me the other day, should NWA be nominated for to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I was like, are you out of your mind? Weren't they one of the first groups to use make bitch and hoe popular? She was like, nah, but it was before that. I'm like, yes, it was. But didn't they make it popular? She was like, yeah. I'm like, so why do they get... How did that message go out and affect our community? In a positive or negative way? She said in a negative way. So why should they get an award? And this lets you know the menticide that is upon us. This is the menticide that's upon us. So we went from black to African American on up to our current status, the first black president, and how, I don't know how many years he's been in now, but how has that worked out for the so-called African American community? Area code 256-849-2227, African American Ain't African Radio. Call us with your questions, comment if you have something you want to add. We love to hear from you. If you ever watched the movie A Soldier Story, if you ever seen the movie The Soldier Story, the Soldier Story was a movie about this sergeant who was a complete asshole. He was, if you saw Django, he was Samuel L. Jackson character, Stevens. That's what he was in Soldier Story. Just just your typical African American. What an African American is. That's what Sarge, the role Sarge played in A Soldier Story. Soldier Story was set in the 1940s, right at the end of the World War II, 1940s. And you have to wonder in the 1940s how black males in America were willing to fight Hitler but not willing to fight the oppressed here at home. We always hear stories about how when brothers came back from fighting those wars, they came back and got dogged out here in America. What what was going on here in America during that time? And why were brothers so willing to get into a man's army who was oppressing them to go fight another man way across the water? Why was that? How was that possible? What were those guys thinking about? So if I came and stepped on your shoe or bumped against you on accident, you take a defensive stand. What happened? Why do the African American think like that? Why is the people that dog us out, or the system that really have us as the fodder in it, why do we continue to support it? I mean, just ask yourself that question and look for an answer. And a lot of times you can get a better answer if you put yourself in the position. Why would you allow somebody to slap you in the mouth on a daily basis and you come back and get another slap in the mouth? Why do we do that? These are questions we're going to have to start answering. As you know, movies like the soldier stories in most movies, they're made to program. There's not really no entertainment to it because most of the stories are the same. Same concept, same ideas. They put you in an inferior position. That's why I find it amazing that Negroes pay for cable TV. They show you as a monkey all the time in everything, and we cool with it. We made that thing up. We made cable TV a $1 trillion industry. We helped create that. You wouldn't know nothing about Michael Jackson if you didn't see him on TV. You wouldn't know nothing about Mike Tyson if you didn't see him on TV. These are creations of other people, and this is how the African Americans live their lives. Always being told what to do, never thinking of what's best for the group, always thinking about what's best for others. This is the African American. So we're going to see how they were programmed along these 5 items that I just gave. We're going to see how they were programmed. The introduction of TV to the masses. Remember, TV was invented in the early 1920s and 30s, but black people didn't get them. Black people didn't get TV until like the mid-50s. There probably were a few people who were rich that had TVs back then, but for the most part, the masses didn't have TV. They didn't get TV until the 1950s, and this is where the programming started, in the 1950s. If you look at the shows that were on TV back there, black people wasn't even in them. That's the civil rights movement. Those are that generation. TV came in when the civil rights generation were children. That's the civil rights movement. So they got their programming early. During that time of TV, the people were called black. This is very important in the evolution of how the African American was created, because you'll notice that the African American identity changes every 30, 40, 50 years. Before it was African American, it was black. Before it was black, it was Negro. Before it was Negro, it was colored. Before it was colored, it was nigger. This is how they do it. We're the only people who identity changes year after year after year, 20, 30 years. Our identity always changes. Why? Nobody else has changed. These are the questions we have to ask. And these are the questions that the young man was asking. Why do identity change all the time? It's to erase you out of history. That's what the word black means. So when you ask a person, well, this is how the African American is trained. Much like dogs. So we're given commands. We don't ask what the commands are. We don't ask what the words mean. We just accept them and start using them ourselves. So if you ask a person, well, what does the term black mean? They don't know. A color just pops up in their head. They don't know where the word originated from, who created the word, and why. That's not important. It's a command that they use to talk about themselves. to label themselves. And like I said, the tongue is powerful. If you call what is black? Black is simply absence of light. The simple answer is absence of light. Don't you like it at night when it's pitch black and you just fall right to sleep? It's black. There's no light on. But light in this manner, since they're talking about you, since they're talking about a person, light, because light to the European or the light to your masters or to the ones that you love, the one that you uphold and protect, light to them is knowledge. That's what the Statue of Liberty, she has the light there. That's light. Is knowledge. Prometheus, the fire, is knowledge, is light. They call you black because they say you're absence of light, absence of knowledge. Since you don't know what the word means, you use it and you will throw your fist up with it, giving it power. They love that. They love that. We don't know. We don't because we don't name ourselves. We don't say, you know what, your system sucks. It doesn't work for us. Too many of us die. Too many of us are sick. Our life expectancy is getting lower. We're not learning anything. We're going to go off and try something on our own. We don't do that. We put our kids right smack dab in the middle, knowing that we got dogged in the same process. That's why we going to suffer. And do it with a smile. Do it with a smile. So we got the introduction of TV in the mid-50s, and this started to shape the minds of these people that were coming up in the civil rights movement. So all the shows on TV were white, and we know how TV is now. TV is mainly white now, and you have about 16,000 channels. But back then, when you only had 2 or 3 or 4 channels, it was all white. You wasn't on TV at all. And when you did get on TV, well, go look at blacks on TV back then and you'll see how they were being trained. We don't have time to go into that tonight. Right after the introduction of TV, went to the Brown versus the Board of Education. Now this was important because now the court said that now we have to get their mind. We can come over here and let us train them, because before that, and if you're in the South somewhere, you still people. The old people here, they talk about their teachers. That's one thing that they talk about. I do a lot of interviews with some of our elderly people down here. When the people talk about their teachers, they talk about them in high esteem. They said, because even though we had shoddy, good-for-nothing schools, the teachers was adamant that we have to teach our kids to be something. But we laid that to the side, and since we wanted to go to school with them, we wanted them to educate us. How we came to that conclusion, or how those people came to that conclusion, was definitely the work of the talented 10th, because they would be the ones who would be getting the checks. You see, public school in America is garbage. It was garbage when I went. It's worse now. And we happy, la 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 la. Our kids are being trained to be idiots, and we cool with it. We cool with it. So the Brown versus Board of Education got us educated, and you see that we've had 60 years of that, and you see where it's gotten us. The Brown versus Board of Education got all the kids. Now you have the school. Now you have the TVs. You have the schools. Now check out these two entities that took over the so-called African Americans' mind. The Brown versus Board of Education. You have the schools. Then comes this thing called the Civil Rights Movement, which I affectionately call the Civil Rights Sham. Because I mean, damn, y'all, for real. And that was about the economics. So this is where we're stuck. I'm letting you know why the African American is in. This is a short term, the last 60 years. It goes back much further than that. We'll talk about that a little later. But just now, for this hour, we're going to talk about these last 60 years. Y'all hear that? It's thundering and lightning. Thunder and lightning, and the rain is coming down in sheets. The Civil Rights Sham broke up the continuity of the economics for the community. See, at that time, we had brothers that knew how to farm. At that time, we had sisters that knew how to make clothes. At that time, we had brothers who was hunters and going out and getting their land and having cattle and stuff on their land, growing cotton. We don't do that no more. We happy as hell to go to Walmart and get the cheapest thing on the shelf. If not, if you're one of the Negroes who make a lot of money, you go shop in somebody else's stores. We don't even make our own clothes. What do you think we look like, black man, to the rest of the world? We don't even talk about it. I know if I talk about this with some brothers, they want to fight. The black man's sole purpose for being, I don't know what the sister's purpose for being because I'm not a female, but the black man's sole purpose for being is to make sure that his master is safe and secure. If I'm lying, call me, 256-849-2227. African Americans Ain't African Radio. The civil rights sham broke up the continuity of the economics. Here's an example. During the civil rights movement, you always see the picture where they used to, and they still stay it down here. I'm in the South now. You hear this as a major story, how they would feed you, give you sandwiches out the back door. Why didn't you just build your own restaurants? If these people didn't want you to live with them, eat at their I don't get that. The whole impetus of the civil rights movement, I don't get. If they don't want you in their restaurants, build your own restaurant and start serving, making better food than them. Hire the brothers and sisters that they have cooking in their kitchens. Come work in your kitchen and let's take over this food thing. Why didn't we do that? How did we let the Chinese come in and start selling us rats? How did that happen? If you the black man, you the first man on, how did that happen? How come we didn't take over the food industry so now when our children want to go to school, we have all these and you see all the restaurants they got around here? They got hundreds that we support on a daily. They got Negroes eating Arby's. If that ain't the garbagest food you ever heard, how come we didn't do that? Because we were trained not to. When we joined the Brown versus Board, your teacher stopped training you. You went to the Brown versus Board of Education. You wanted to be educated with. You wanted them to educate you. You wanted to be like them, and the civil rights movement got you to integrate with them. You can go live with them now. You can bring them your money now. You can bring them your tax base now, and leave yours behind. Leave your restaurants behind. Is that what Negroes do? Don't we look like fools? Left our stuff behind, went to go be with boss. Now the Indians and the Arabs coming over buying the hotels in your community because you can't hold on to them. And you stand up with your chest out for what? You gotta be kidding me. You've gotta be kidding. This is where we are today. Let the rain fall down, let the rain fall down, let the rain fall down, down. Hey, we coming with fire tonight. Mother Nature on our side. She ain't playing. That's the power we have. Working in concert, working with each other, that's the power we have. But other people siphon it off from us and we gladly give it up. I mean, we do it with a smile. And then when somebody like me comes along saying, hey, maybe we ought not do that. Boss, he's saying we shouldn't do that. That's the African American. So the civil rights sham got us twisted economically. Now we don't buy from each other. We want other people's stuff. I mean, I ask Negroes all the time, how much stuff in your house is made in China? The looks on their face let you know what they thinking. And I said, how much stuff in your house do you have that you made? Okay, so in Chinese houses, how much stuff do you think in their houses that they have made? And how much stuff you have made? This is the African American. They don't buy your stuff. Everybody boycotts you. Everybody boycotts you. Everybody boycotts you. Everybody hates you, and you just go and love and ask for the punishment. I think that's one of the main reasons why we have going on the planet is going on. What's happening on the planet is going on because we weigh and we are a major force on this planet. But we think we're black. We think we're nothing. We think we're Africans. Another thing, we're going to get in that next. So the civil rights sham was to break us down economically, and we've seen how that worked. In 1930, there was a brother in Ohio made the first, brothers was making cars. Brothers was manufacturing cars in the 1930s. Why didn't we keep that going today? Why didn't we keep that going? Huh? A lot of brothers talk about Marcus Garvey. Right. When you were producing back there, your attention was diverted, as it always is. You take your eyes off of you and you put it on other people. And when you put your eyes on them, you keep it there. That's why they teach you to hate yourself, so you will serve others. You won't serve yourself. It ain't that you don't hate your brothers and sisters. You don't hate them. You hate yourself. And in hating yourself, anybody outside of you gonna get what you get. That's all that is. This is simple, folks. This is simple. So the civil rights sham got us broke off economically. Then we went from now. During the civil rights movement, the word the label that you were being called was black. Black, as I mean, absence for light. One of the major artists in black history was one James Brown. James Brown saying, "I'm black and I'm proud," with a perm in his head. Think about what that does to a child. Is that confusing him or what? You got some Negroes in the community act like James Brown is a god. He's an artist that most, or at least I had never met. I'm sure he did some wonderful things. But psychologically to a people, how's it came? Then, of course, who followed him? Michael Jackson? Right? So you're seeing the African American community, the Michael Jacksonization of the African American community. Michael Jackson always told you that James Brown was the godfather. He learned from him. So let's check this out. Check out how this is going to go. So Black Power was in. Fred Hampton, the Black Panthers. I would suggest that you do a little further investigation on the Black Panthers and see where they were coming from and what they were talking about and what their actions and what they left, the legacy they left. It's very important we understand that story. It's glossed over a lot. So at the end of the 60s going into the 70s, 80s, you were black. Black power, black power. Black and power in a oppressive system like we live in don't go together. It's an oxymoron statement because black has the word lack in it. Be lack. Be lack. See, we take other people's definition of phenomenon. We don't look at it ourselves and see what this word is associated with. What does this word mean for us? And we don't break it down ourselves. We go ask boss, what this mean? This is the African American today. I'm talking about doctors. I'm talking about PhD Negroes. It's not the poor folks. It's the talented. I don't even call it talented because the creativity that came out of that group that could help the African American group as a whole is embarrassing. Embarrassing. I mean, think of the economics. The economics we have wasted on cars, and we don't build one. If we were trading as a group, against the Japanese? How much have we spent on Japanese cars? Principal and interest, oil, spark plugs, tires, gas, engine parts. How much have we spent and how much have they spent with us? You see how we being sucked dry? And most of us, we happy with it. We happy with it. If you think you going to heaven, if you think you going to heaven, you got another thought coming. You got another thought coming. So at the end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s, you were called black. But then something happened in the 80s that really knocked it off the track and and got us in this current trajectory where we are. And the trajectory where we are is called genocide. We went from black to African American. Now, one of the things about the African American is, in the 70s, they showed a story. This is right after the Black Power movement. A story came out called Roots. Alex Haley. Do your research on Alex Haley. Alex Haley was a cold piece. Navy intelligence spy, went in and spied on the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X. Because you have to ask yourself, if you ask yourself questions, and one thing African Americans don't do, they don't ask questions. They wait to be told what to do. I'm not saying this to be an asshole. I'm telling you truthfully. We don't figure things out. We wait for somebody to tell us what to do. Right? Alex Haley came out with Roots, and that story was a lie. Alex Haley had to apologize. Just pull it up. Alex Haley plagiarized Roots. But what you have to ask about Malcolm X, why would somebody write an autobiography at 37, 38 years old? Who does that? 37, 38, you still think you young. You still think you got a lot of life in front of you. Who would do a autobiography then? Do your homework on these type things, people. Just don't follow the history what other people tell you. Look at this stuff for real. Then you can figure it out. Alex Haley comes out with Roots was one of the boringest, even back then, slow-witted, dim-witted, stupid, don't make no sense. I even asked my mama back then, well, mama, where are these ships? Where are the ships that brought all these people? You mean those people was on them ships that long and they were peeing and boo-booing and eating in that stain? Really? So even back then I was asked, because it just didn't make sense to me. Still ask them questions today, and you got Negroes with PhDs teaching that Negroes came over here in a boat. Africa population, if that would have happened over in Africa, the slave trade, Africa's population wouldn't be what it is today. It would be decimated. If you took millions and millions and millions of young people from their home, that creates a gap. A huge gap when generations are wiped out. We don't look at it, we just believe. We don't even figure shit like we don't figure it out. We refuse to figure it out. I believe. They can tell us anything. And we believe it. We don't question, we don't debate it, we don't argue it, we don't ask questions, we don't go, We don't do that. We just get our coon on. That's the African American. So after Alex Haley came out with Roots, about 10 years later, the term African American started hitting. Because one of the things, you can't do this real fast. You can't do this programming real fast because the people will reject it. It'll feel like they're forced on them. So they take their time. And as they're taking their time doing it, they just extract the money out of you. So it's like a Negro say, I make $20 an hour. No, you don't. How much of that an hour do you get taxed? They tell you they pay you $20 an hour, but in really you're getting what? 13, 14? Yeah. But we pretend like we not living that type system because we too punk, especially the males, to create our own system. We just want to work for How come brothers over here ain't got no timber companies? How come we not cutting down trees and building our own communities? Black man, you the first one on the planet. See, the stuff we say is dumb. And this is what we feed to our children. all men came out of you. How come you're not building cities and towns? And don't tell me you oppressed because you can go play football. You can work at his job. You can help him build his empire. You can help him build his cars. You can help him build his skyscrapers. You can help him build his universities. But you can't build your own. And you think you're going to get respect from people around the world? Are you out of your mind? That's the African American in 2014. So going from African American, you have to ask yourself, what does the term African mean? You ever notice that people from the continent, they don't call themselves African. They call themselves wherever they come from, be it Nigerian, Kenyan, Ghanaian, Egyptian, Ethiopian. They call themselves from the group of people that they are from. And they connect with other groups of people to keep that part of the world whatever it is it's supposed to be doing. That's the same thing that the African American is supposed to be doing. Africa has over 50 countries in it. Which country are you from? Huh? That's the African American. You calling yourself Africa has over 50 countries, America has over 30. Where are you from? That's what we sound like when we talk. This is going on in all your magazines, in all your art, all your print media, books. And today, African American, they're even calling people like Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King even warned you in his I Have a Dream speech. The Negro finds himself exiled in his own land. This is what I mean. We don't even get that. And that was what, 1963? This is where we are. And talking to it about and so somebody told me, man, just give it to the kids, because the adults, they already gone. And they're right. They're absolutely right. So African American, the term African the term Africa is a political term. It's not a term to describe something. It's a term to describe what is about to happen. So when the Romans went down to Carthage, or whatever it was called, because remember, we're using a language that's not ours. So what the people at that time, what the Egyptians called themselves, I don't know, because I don't know their language, the language that they spoke. But I'm sure they didn't call themselves Egyptians. Get a lot of brothers be, how you know that? Because they didn't use the letters EGYPT. They didn't use those letters. They drew pictures, or however they wrote. They didn't speak German or English. They spoke their language. And since we're over here speaking somebody else's language, unfortunately, that's how we think. That's why you have so much friction in the community, because we uphold it, but it beats you down. It's using you as the fodder to help keep it going, because it couldn't go without you. If you just decided, yeah, you know what, let's train our own, let's open up our own schools. I don't care if you have to take the house on every corner and make it a school. The house on the north corner, east side, that's the high school. The house on the east corner, south side, that's the junior high school. West side, west side, south, that's the elementary school. What we doing? No creativity on how to get this done. None. Go to the park and do it. Do it online. And we cool to let our kids go like this? Yeah, we are. The term African lets you know what's going to happen to a people. And when the Romans came in and named the land Africa, they began to kill the land out. That's why the northern part of Africa is a desert now. They killed it out. Do you ever wonder that? Why is that a desert? When they came in, they took the people away. If the people can't work with the land, the land dies out and the people die out. That's what happened. They sold it with salt. Read the history of it. So nothing would ever grow there again. So nothing would ever, so those people would never rise again. That's what they're doing to you over here. They tell you a story that you came over here on a ship. The story is so dumb and absurd. They got brothers and sisters who will defend the story, and when you ask them specific questions, they fall apart. The story is dumb. It's the dumbest story I ever heard. But since all we have been trained to believe, that's what the Brown versus Board of Education, that's what the TV was about. That's what them training you. That's what the Civil Rights Jam was about. To get you into the mindset to destroy yourself. That's what the African American is today. An African lets you know what is about to happen to a people. It lets you know the condition of the people. They're about to be taken over. It's a political term. Those people didn't call themselves Africans before the Romans came. This is common sense. You didn't call yourself black before these people named you that. What did you call yourself? When you ask the African American that, look at them in the eye when you ask them that question. What did you call yourself before they named you? Massa ain't told us nothing yet. That's the African American, 2014. So they named you African American. Why they named you African American? Because they knew, remember, these people think 100 years in advance. All these wars that they started all over the world, they had to let these people come in because they messed up their places. Korean War, they dogged Korean out. Now Korean running roughshod in the black community economically, right? Because you don't have no say-so over here. You are African. You are a refugee. You don't feel that you have any connection to the land. The Koreans think they have more right to your money than you think you have for it. Tell me I'm lying. The Africans are over here pimping. They don't live with you. They don't live in your communities. They live with white folk, don't they? They coming in braiding your hair because you have lost that art and refuse to pass it down to your daughters. You won't even teach your 10-year-old daughters, train them how to do pedicure so they can take over the pedicure market from the Asians. You won't even do that. And you think you're going to be blessed? Okay. You're right. Let you have it. That's the African American. So you've seen how the African Americans have been going for the last 27, 28 years. Just on a death spiral. All the politicians, you see them all, sorry, stealing. I mean, damn, you in public office, you know they trying to get you, and you still playing that game? Check out the politicians. The Charlotte, North Carolina mayor. For money, y'all. All you can do is go buy some foreign stuff. So that's why the African American, he is the money. Because everybody that comes here gets rich off of them first before they launch into their worldwide whatever they do. And we cool with it. And the idiots you have leading you that you follow, you'd be better off following a monkey. Look at what's happening. Look at what's happening. You building cars, you making blankets, you making movies, you making food, you producing food. You know this food is genetically modified, but you're not gonna do nothing to stop it. Now, as usual, the African American always say, well, what you doing about it? I'm growing my food. I try to trade with the brothers who are also growing their food, but they got farmers markets. The brothers that are in there selling, I get with them, but that's not good enough. We all need to be in full production, and if we're in full production, we'll crackle, snap, and pop like that thunder you hear in the background. That's how you used to do it before you came an African. So African American was used to just get the people totally discombobulated by themselves, disconnected from themselves. If you don't think you're a part of nothing, you won't be nothing. So they had to get you off the land to get you thinking about Africa because they were letting all these immigrants come in. It's like you see all these people running gas stations and stuff now. Those are your businesses. You the one who made them pop in the beginning. It's like Michael Jackson. Ain't it sad that all them white people get all Michael Jackson money and the so-called African American, the Negro